morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Monday morning where Grumpy is in the house with all his glory, but he's kind of happy because he watched the game with me. No, not really. He doesn't. He only comes out on Mondays. But Matush is here. What's happening?
Not much. I don't think it's finally found out why he's grumpy all the time. It's because you don't let him leak out for the weekend. You just put him behind a cabinet door, all dark and quiet, and never gets to experience anything. Man, what the hell?
I never thought about it like that, but you know what? Everybody has his own role and should know it and should live it. Like you criticizing my cups treatments over. Grumpy's happy being grumpy. See, some people are just happy being grumpy. We have a couple of those in American Scouts. Some people are just be happy. Like me, I'm just happy being nervous and worried and stuff like that. But what a weekend. And this is what, like 3 Mondays in a row where we're coming out saying, what a weekend. By the way, us very closely matching is getting more and more disturbing. I know you mentioned that once you jumped on with the camera, but I might have to go change it. Or at least keep doing this so that you can say we're not wearing the same thing.
We did talk about wearing the same thing for the rest of American Scouts' existence. This is just the beginning. As soon as I go get my hat, you guys, it's going to be downhill from there.
It's going to be, what was that, twins?
Oh, with
Arnold
and Robert De Niro. No, not Robert De Niro. Danny DeVito.
Yes, that's going to be us. Sergi, Alan, good morning, everybody. Meanwhile, we keep adding followers as well, almost at that 1,000 thing, 987. So give us a thumbs up right now if you're watching. Give us a share. Bring somebody over and let us get to 1,000. We said Christmas. Looks very likely, but we shall find out. Cersei is the last guy to talk about this. First of all, he wouldn't find the reason because Jota was nowhere to be found, but he's coming back soon. But that's the thing.
And we haven't. Remember how you guys? It's just an observation from last week. Look, I'm an observing kind of person where I see what I see, and usually it's not the important stuff. So you gotta just let it go. But isn't it interesting how we're having one of the greatest starts in Premier League history, and Diogo Jota is nowhere to be found? I'm just kidding.
He was there in the beginning. Don't you even try it. Don't you even try it.
No, I know.
I mean, dude, like 3 Mondays in a row, we're like, holy cow, like nobody saw this coming. I think, is it like, I was going to go back right before the show and take a look, but I didn't get a chance to see, like, this is back to back to back, where we're literally only like 2 points ahead of them only 3 weeks ago or 3 match days ago. And now we're suddenly 11 points ahead because they had lost 3 in a row, right?
Yeah.
So, that's crazy by itself. And I don't know, like, should Arsenal and Chelsea fans be insulted when everybody's talking about 11 points, like there's nobody in between kind of an ordeal? Or, like, I mean, it's odd because everybody, I know they were the heavy favorites regardless. So everybody's looking at, like, the point difference. And I'm not talking about everybody. I'm not talking about Liverpool fans. Like, you turn on anything like Sky, BBC, whatever. That's all they're talking about too, like 11 points. Or are they just basically trying to find more City talking points?
I don't know if they're trying to find more City talking points. I think City will always be a talking point as long as they're managed by Pep and they're in the Premier League. I think historically they have the data and the statistics to bring up City in those conversations, because it's not like not every single year did they run away with the title, right? I mean, there were a couple of years where they did fight back and they had rough early starts and they had to claw their way back and make up points. So I think the reason why we talk about an 11-point gap is because we've talked about Liverpool and City for the last 6-7 years. That's just all it's been. So whenever you think of one, you think of the other for the most part. So I think that's where the 11-point gap. And I don't think Chelsea or Arsenal fans should be insulted. I think they'd understand. I think especially more so Chelsea fans, because Arsenal fans are deluded anyway. I think Chelsea fans, they will recognize that they have not been in a position to be challenging for a while, realistically. And just because they're 9 points behind doesn't necessarily mean they're actually 9 points behind in a challenging sense. I think they just happen to be 9 points behind because that's just how many points they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You said in the most the Jewish way possible, but yeah, it does make sense. I mean, the thing is, I was on Northside's show yesterday, I believe it was. Well, it was yesterday. It was definitely after the game, a couple hours after the game. It's an Arsenal channel, but when they do these call-ins, there's like 8-9 people at once online, and it's a mix. There was like a United fan and a couple of like Liverpool fans and stuff like that. And it's odd because Arsenal fans, I mean, I guess we like Liverpool fans are the same way sometimes, but it's either like they're gonna win it all or the world is ending and they're all like jumping off a cliff and kind of stuff. But in some ways, Northside himself is probably like the most realistic person and is like kind of like not too happy about the way things are. I think Arsenal fans feel, maybe because of what happened earlier in the season, that they are one injury away. Like if they lose Odegaard or if they lose Saka for like 2-3 matches, it's going to be over because they just don't have the depth that we do. Is that like when you look at who's competing with us? I mean, you got to keep City still in the picture, right?
Mhm.
Until they fall further, or we're saying the same thing at the end of this month. If it's still 11 points at the end of this month, then maybe you can kind of put them in the rearview mirror. But Arsenal and Chelsea is deep, but that's like a good case study over here. You have Arsenal, who's a more established team, and I think they have a playing style and all that kind of stuff, but they're not as deep. And then you have Chelsea, who is mainly maybe too deep, but they're still like coming together and stuff. Which one worries you more?
That's a good question. I think based on historically in the last couple of years, I think Arsenal, only because I don't know if what we've seen from Enzo Maresca and Chelsea is enough for me to think of them as contenders come April, right? This year, though, has already been a much different year than we expected. We never thought we'd be having a conversation about being 11 points clear after the first day of December. I mean, if you said, hey, we were 11 points clear middle of April, I'd go, yeah, I mean, that's a fun dream, maybe, but no.
It's a fun dream.
Yeah. But if you told me that we were 11 points clear after the 1st of December, I would tell you to go get checked in somewhere and stop being such a deluded Liverpool fan. Because
Actually, you would, yeah.
It wasn't a realistic thing, right? I mean, you can be optimistic all you want. There's a difference between optimism and realism, and no one, I don't think even Slot himself could have predicted they'd be 11 points ahead because you didn't think City would have such a tumultuous stretch. Because even if all of our results stayed the same, but City's results were different, it would still be a 3-4 point gap, right? So it would still be kind of neck and neck like that. So I think because this has been such an unpredictable year, maybe it is Chelsea that posed the biggest threat because as I think we talked about it last year before the beginning of the season, that playing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge and getting that draw was probably the best time to play them because they're only going to get better. And we talked about that the whole year until, Poch got sacked. Yeah. So, but now it really is, hey, it's probably a lot better to play them a lot earlier now because of how much better they're getting on. I do think they still have problems in the back. I think that's one. You said they have a lot of depth. They have a lot of attacking depth. I don't think their defensive depth is as good. And if they have the depth that they have there, just quality-wise, isn't as good. So I think they've got problems in the back that they might not be able to make up for the entire year. So, but yeah, I think Arsenal still edges just a little bit for me.
Yeah, I agree. I just feel like, and maybe we had this as well. So, like, we'll see. The difference, I guess, is we are a team who is used to this title run kind of thing. I feel like Liverpool started the season the same way. The expectations were not like, it was City and Arsenal. We were hoping to be in the picture, but everybody had like City and Arsenal in the picture. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with Chelsea. I feel like they're kind of like playing with house money in some ways. So there's not a lot of stress on the team. But then you kind of like, once you kind of get into the race, that stress starts coming in. And it'll be interesting to see how a Chelsea squad handles that, because it's a lot easier, I think, I don't have as big of a concern for us to be able to handle that, because a huge part of the squad has been in title races nonstop, so they know. So they know what the expectation is. Maybe they didn't expect to be here, but now that they're here, they know how it works and stuff like that. So I agree that it would be Arsenal more than anything else. And they do have, I mean, I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago, like their fixtures are a bit easier, at least on paper, for like December. So they can go on a run over here. And then, maybe if we drop points, like they finish the year within like 6 or 7 points, then, you can expect them to be not optimistic, but, still think that there's a hope, especially if they beat us or something like that. The big thing with Arsenal is the fact that our game, we don't play till almost, I think, like April or May or something like that, and we play at Anfield. Right. So that's like the biggest thing. I think, like we have the advantage there in that sense.
That could be the title deciding match.
That could be, yeah, that's interesting. Actually, hold on, let's take a look at that. I don't know when I said that, but I know because we were talking about in the post match yesterday, and I know Kazi was mentioning it, that's the disadvantage for them, because if it was earlier, they could win that game, put themselves back in the competition. It's like May. It's the third from last game. Yeah. We could be, celebrating that at home by then. I mean, if things go like this, right?
Right. If it stays like this, they'd be giving us, it would be walking through applause between Saka and Odegaard and Arteta as the players come onto the field.
And maybe bring like Bernardo Silva just for shits and giggles. He doesn't miss out on the whole party. Like, dude, we know you really like this. So now looking at the schedule, though, I mean, once I started celebrating, I went back to my original default settings of worrying. Newcastle away is a tough fixture. So you have these two games, Newcastle away and then at Everton. 6 points from these and start getting on the bus with Kazi?
I think I'm kind of on the bus already, but it's one of those where the bus had just left as I was trying to run to the stop. So I jumped and I grabbed the side of it, and now I'm just hanging on as the bus is going. That's where I'm at right now. And in the next bus stop, I will decide whether or not it's time to get on or not, or if I should just keep hanging on for dear life. I think this week is going to be very telling. You get 6 points, both of these. That's 15 games gone. And if you still have that 9-point gap after 15 games, I mean, it seems too good to be true, which also in the back of your head, you think, my God, if this team does collapse in whatever way, we will never, ever hear the end of this season ever again in our lives from rival fans.
Yeah, it would scar us for a little bit too, right? Like we would not be able to celebrate anything until like March or something like that. Especially I wouldn't. But
yeah.
But here's the thing: I'm looking at Arsenal's schedule. It's not like they have an easy run this week because the United's. I don't know. It could be it's probably the new manager's smell more than anything else. They were sick of Ten Hag themselves.
They're playing Everton.
They're playing Arsenal. They're playing United at home, and then they have a Fulham at Fulham. So. It's not the easiest. Then they have Everton too, but obviously Arsenal playing Everton and us playing Everton are like two very different things, especially being at Everton last game at Goodison Park and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be really going. Sergi says, I'm canceling life if you throw this away. Yeah, that would really scar, right? I mean, that would be rough. And that's why, don't want to get too excited too early. Because if you think about it, it is really early and we're only talking a 3-game lead, which, man, I do say that, but even as I say it, only 3-game lead sounds a little obnoxious because you're talking 3 losses,
right?
For a team that has only lost 1 game so far,
right? And that's assuming that the teams below them don't lose as well,
because
at this rate, 9 points, you just have to roughly match the results of the 2 teams below you, and you're fine. You can drop points the same weekend Chelsea, Arsenal, or City drop points because that doesn't change much. And maybe, a draw, if they draw, you draw, or if they draw, you lose. Like that's only 1 point. that would take 9 games if you
Yeah.
lose and they draw, right? So it's just it's weird to say only 3 games and then look at it the actual point wise that it is a pretty big gap. It's just a matter of staying consistent, knock on wood, hoping that we don't have any injuries. Obviously Kanate being out for a while, Bradley being out for a while, Costas is in a boot. Who knows how long he's going to be out. And Allison coming back, who knows? I mean, it's you want to get excited and you want to enjoy the ride, but there's always a piece of you as a fan of this club that is just pulling you back just ever so slightly to make sure, hey, like keep your head in check because you don't want this to absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. It's just like kind of like concerns in that sense. Like I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I really think like you get these. I mean, knowing me, once we get these 2 games out of the way, I'm going to be like, let's get these next 2 games out. But I know you look at our schedule. Let me go back to our schedule over here and see if I can put that on the screen. Meanwhile, let's talk about this real quick as I'm doing that because I already do have this on the screen. What did you think about that? I thought, it was classic. Oh, I don't know. I only give this to, I mean, they do this back home and stuff too, but, sacked in the morning and stuff like that. It's kind of like a British soccer thing. And I thought it was done in jest anyway. Like the fans know that Pep, it's not like Pep is going to be fired, but it was just like funny thing to do to a guy who's kind of tortured you. And then he turned around, and that was very Jose Mourinho of him to do that. But he kind of was doing it. I thought like everybody was making too big of a deal. I thought it was just like I actually thought it was kind of like a pleasant moment than anything else. It didn't feel like animosity there because I think as much as we like Liverpool fans hate Pep, I think in both ways there is like a mutual respect, like the way Guardiola towards Liverpool fans and maybe Liverpool fans towards Pep in terms of, like how much his teams have tortured us with or without charges, whatever. But either way, he's been the guy. So I don't know. Why do you think there was so much made about it? Like it was like rude on him. I thought like people were going at Pep too much for doing that. I think like Musto or whatever, who doesn't like anything and anybody. It feels like he was like, oh, that was not like really nice, and I'm like, it was just fucking banter.
It was just banter. I think here's how I interpreted it though, and I think the big difference for me, what changed the way I felt about it, was after the game when he did it again and was just at the away end, just holding that up. I think the very first time that he did it, it was hilarious. And honestly, I was sitting here and I was just like, yo, that's fair play. That's if I was in that position and I thought to do that, I would have done it. I thought that's pretty clever. And we're just having fun, right? Because like you're saying, he's not getting sacked in the morning. It was just a fun, in jest, banter thing. He responded. Now, after the game, going to the away end and just standing there with that all up, that to me, if I was a City fan, that would have annoyed me at doing it the second time, because that feels like, hey, this is a concession for the rest of the year. Like, this is what I've given you. I've given you 6. Like, don't expect another one. That's how I took that one. Is that he's like, you know what? I'm throwing this year away almost. And if I'm a City fan in that situation, I'm thinking that's not the mentality that I want. I want us to try and compete still for this year. I don't want to just call it a lost cause. I think there was someone else that mentioned something along those lines too, that it felt very much like like, hey, just remember what I gave you, and whatever happens, I'm kind of done. That's kind of how it looked and felt. I don't know.
I did not see it like that. I know what you mean, and I can see. Naya, you explain it like why you would kind of like see it as that, but I'm trying to see like if we won that many titles and Klopp comes and does that, would be like, oh, we're done now? What the fuck? Like, I don't think we would be, that's, I don't know, that seems a little ungrateful. I actually took that as more of, bringing the players there. And I don't know if there were reactions from the fans, like maybe some negative reactions from the fans. I kind of took that as these are the same guys that bought, won you 6 titles. Like this
Mhm.
is the same group on the pitch, including himself, that has brought you 6 titles. Like we have that kind of. I took it more as that than like, well, this is all you guys get. See you guys later, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. I just took it more as that because he said in the post match as well, the one that's like, there's like the post match press conference and the post match interview. In the interview, he mentioned something like, "These guys have given me so many good memories," blah blah blah. Like he didn't want to bash players, but it almost seemed like a guy who was on the sideline thinking, "Yeah, some of these fuckers have to go, man," kind of a thing. And then he was like, "It was great, but some of these fuckers have to go,"
Or
kind of.
thinking I have to go. I
You
mean
think
that.
so? You think he would bail? Because that really, if he didn't sign a contract, but after signing a contract and then now getting like hammered back to back to back, if he came around and be like, "Yeah, you know what? Redo just sounds way too much work. I'm off."
He just comes out with a video saying he's tired, and then it's fine, right? I mean, he's a human being. If he decides that he's done, and he'll walk out, holding his 6 fingers up still, and people will remember him for the 6 at City. People remember him for the dozen at Bayern. People will remember him for the dozens at Barca. So yeah, I think realistically, do I think he's going to step down? No, but I think there is a chance that it is on the mind that maybe he recognizes that he is not the right person for this next iteration of the City rebuild because he's never had to do something like this. He's always been able to just inherit a good team, buy extra players, and not have to really transition from one squad to another. And so now that we're seeing him try to do that, it's not really working out as well.
Yeah, like
So
he's formed this team, got the victories. See you later. Who else has
yeah.
money? And then like go over there. I know what you mean. So he said the City fans are crappy. Our fans never booed our team when we went through a worse period under Klopp. I think you're giving our fandom a little too much credit there. I hate to say it, but the thing that I think any manager for Liverpool has going for them is the fact that there's FSG that attracts all the hate whenever something goes wrong or something is negative. They get all the negative vibes towards them that I think helps a manager in that sense, where FSG is the shield. Usually you would have the manager, the shield for the ownership. I think it's almost like in Liverpool it's the other way. FSG is the shield, I think, mostly for the manager, because if Slot came in and didn't succeed, it would be because FSG is not backing them and stuff like that. How many times did we hear FSG is not backing Klopp, FSG is not backing Klopp and stuff like that? Even though we had the highest wages and all that kind of shit, because we didn't bring Mbappe or whatever, or whoever, insert name here, kind of a thing. So I think it's part of that. I don't know. That'll be interesting for him to. Yeah, I guess you could come out and be like, "Yeah, I was really into it, but this is more." I mean, because that's basically saying this is a lot more work than I thought. If he leaves now,
Yeah, I mean, but maybe he's just not used to that kind of work. We've talked about assistant managers, or like let's take other Pep for example, right? And how much credit that we liked to give him during the Klopp era, right? And how much accolades he received from Klopp, from the team, sometimes from the fans. And he goes off on his own, and he's given Salzburg the worst start ever in their history, right?
yep.
You're just good at certain things, and some of those things in Pep's case just is that you have a great team that you that you inherit, that you add a couple pieces to, and you continue making them better. But what you're really good at is not bringing in different players to form a different foundation of your team, right? Every foundation of your team is good, but when you start bringing in new players, you're not necessarily as good doing that. I don't know. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the best managers of all time. So to kind of say that might be silly, but it is a different kind of management than what he might be used to.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things on that one in terms of not every assistant in any line of work, and I've seen it in the past in my line of work.
Mhm.
Not every assistant makes a good manager because people are like kind of thriving in that assistant role because a lot of the other things are being taken care of the guy on top. So the assistant is like, he's like, I can do the same thing. Well, yeah, maybe not, because all these other things. Can you do all these other things as well, aside from what you're bringing to the table? And here's another thing. It's one thing to, you know, implement your things to a Liverpool squad, players like world class players, as opposed to, Salzburg players, where, you can be like Trent. When you see that, play that ball. Well, I mean, Trent can play any long ball with accuracy. If you're telling that to the other guy, you're like, oh, dude, that's a throw in. What are you doing? No, like to the guy, like to the winger, and not to the sideline. So I think that's another part of it. But with Pep, I think the issue is if Pep goes somewhere first and he's doing like a rebuild, I think a rebuild from beginning is a lot easier, right? Because you can, like Amarim, for example, it's a lot easier for him to come and say, well, it's going to take a while, like let's say they get clobbered by Arsenal. Let's hope not. I'm really hoping they get something out of that game.
Mhm.
But, he can say it's a process, trust the process. And then it's going to take some time. Whereas with Pep, everything was working and you're doing great. And then you kind of start faltering. Well, you don't get to say as easily, well, it's a process. No, it's the same team. You only changed three guys, blah, blah. It's a lot, like the mood of it is a
Sure.
lot different. They were talking about it during the game yesterday. That's like, it was almost like do something is pretty much what they were saying to Pep. I don't know if it was like Dixon or so. One of them was mentioning it's like, do what? Which he did. He did put the wingers that kind of like changed the game. I honestly thought they played that game very poorly yesterday. They basically let us do whatever the hell we wanted until later in the game by putting those wingers. I think you put Doku or whatever to start with instead of Nunez.
Yeah.
You give us a bit more to worry about. We're still going to dominate the midfield. Looks like they didn't have anybody to put in that would be like beefy. And you put Bernardo Silva there, apart from being petulant, he's not really bringing a whole lot because he doesn't have a guy to do the dirty work, so he can do the
Yeah.
detail work and stuff. But I thought he approached that game wrong, and he has approached the game. What did you think about the goalie change they did, by the way?
It was weird. I think the message maybe he was trying to send is that no one's place is safe on this team, given the last run of results. But it doesn't make sense to do that there and then not change anything else, right? I feel like the rest of the team ended up unchanged. So what's the point of taking Ederson down? I know that Ortega is. I think City fans will say that Ortega is a better shot blocker just in general, but Ederson's just a better keeper in terms of distribution and being on the ball and all that. So that's why he's playing more often. But we talked about last year how Ederson was starting to decline. It feels like he wasn't the same. So I think it's one of those things where maybe Pep was recognizing that Ederson's just really not in the same sort of form that he was before. And maybe this needed to be done. And he had the justification of the last 6 results to be like, hey, we just kind of need to rip this Band-Aid off, start something else or try something else. But it just felt like overall the City team in general just didn't want to be there yesterday is what it looked like. When you watch the first 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I think Klopp, there was the game last year where he said that, we've never dominated City like that before. And then you watch the first half yesterday, you're like, we've never dominated City like that before, they're just building on top of that. I think I saw there was a stat. This was, I think Manchester City's first shot was in the 39th minute. And that was the latest they've had a shot in the Premier League since 2010.
Crazy.
Yeah, since before, back when they didn't exist as a team, pretty much. They were just on the verge of existing again. Yeah. But yeah, I saw that stat. I was just mind blown. So I think Pep did approach it wrong. I think having them turn us around in the first half was brave and stupid. It was not a good decision. I think Kazi said so on the post-match show.
Yeah.
The Champions League when they did the same thing, it didn't work out. And I think the message maybe from Pep has gotten stale, And that's part of the rebuild. Is if you're trying to rebuild with the same players, the message for them is really stale versus the new players. And that's what we had last year with Klopp. You had a bunch of guys who had heard the same message for many years, who had played the same way for many years, but then you had a new midfield. The new midfielders are like, hey, great, like I'm on board, let's do this. Everyone else is like, man, I'm kind of fucking sick of this. Like this doesn't do it for me anymore, right? The first 3, 4, 5 years, this gave me everything. Now I don't feel it as much. And so I think Pep is in a similar situation where the players that he has, the newer players, they've seen everything they've won. Like, I'm hungry, I'm ready to do this. Everyone else is like, I'm kind of fed. Yeah, I'm pretty full. I'll just sit this one out.
Yeah, it must make that. And I think doesn't matter. That doesn't say anything negative about Pep, or doesn't say negative about Klopp. I think after a while, I mean, we all have things that, and that's when I mean, Cersei knows, for example, like that's when you're getting old because you use some lines. We were talking about this with my brother the other day. Like, we say some things our dad used to say. And, when it was said, you were like, yeah, I know, like, because you heard it so many times, but you're like, now it may, like, like the classic, my dad never used to say this, by the way, but I always say it. But it's like, like, well, are we heating the entire Romeoville area kind of a thing? Like, if you leave the door open, then there's like heat on in like winter, like, or are we cooling the entire neighborhood because the AC's on? You know what I mean? They're like certain things. I mean, if you say the same thing over and over again, you're like, yeah, so whatever, and like close the door. But the message gets old. And, if you have a new dad in the house that comes in and says the same thing, maybe it's like, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're big on this too. That's fine. I think doesn't say anything negative about the other guy when you say the same thing so many times. What is that like? You got to say it 27 times. That's fine and dandy. But when you say it 270 times, it just gets fucking old. So, and here's another thing. Like, there's a thing to be said about these guys being challenged. And the change kind of is a challenge in some ways. What I do admire about this squad, and we've questioned like Van Dijk's like leadership in the past at times, like how he goes about the captain business and stuff like that compared to how Henderson was doing it. And I don't know, maybe the Dutch connection helps or whatever, but I think it says a lot when a team that's used to winning and doing well and did well last year too until towards the end is able to say, yeah, sure, let's give it a go to what you want to do. But I guess I was going to ask you that. I mean, is that basically Slot's biggest achievement, is to convert these guys to his methods and doing it the right way to keep everybody on board? It's a lot easier for him to get Gravenberg on board, but not as easy to get like Van Dijk on board, Trent on board, Mo on board.
Sure. They're believers again.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. But maybe that's what the Van Dijks, the Trents, and the Mo's needed, was a different voice. Maybe that's what they were that's all that it could have been someone else. I mean, it could have been whatever name you throw out there, Xabi Alonso, Amorim, whoever the case, whoever walked in, it was just a different voice. Now, play style could be very different, and you still need to be, I think you have to respect the manager and his ideas and in what he's telling you to actually want to hear it. Like, there's one thing, there's a difference between hearing it and listening to it, right? And if you don't respect them, or if you don't feel like they understand what they're talking about, or don't understand what you want them, what they want you to do, this and that, then it kind of in one ear out the other. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of juice in that, right? But having Slot be as tactically minded as he is, and being the in-game manager as good as he is, the message is a lot easier to get for these players because they respect what he's saying, and they're like, okay, this guy, he's on top of it. He knows his stuff. And if I close my eyes, he kind of sounds like Klopp, but he's not Klopp, and it sounds a little different. So yeah, this is good. Let's do it. And then you get them on board. And maybe that's that, or maybe it's just as simple as these guys are freaks that want to always do as much as they possibly can. And especially when it comes to Mo, he's going to want to prove every single person wrong ever, and he's going to want to break every record ever. So he's always going to do it almost selfishly in a good way, but he's going to want to perform because he consistently looks at those lists and goes, my name is going to be there or there. not down here, right? So it could be just a mixture of everything.
I think, here's another thing. How prepped he is, I think, makes a difference too. I almost feel like, when a new guy comes in, like him, that famous, like, if you turn your ass 8 degrees, you'll be a lot better defender kind of a thing to trans. Something like that. I mean, it's one thing to come in and say stuff. It's another thing to come in and show that a lot went into what you're saying. Like if you come out there and be like, hey, you got to defend better, or if you come out and say like, yeah, you got to do this and stuff like that. But if you can kind of back that up and, I don't know, like your managements, like I remember back in the day, like, like you're managing the stores, like, like I'm doing this. I'm already like 200 guys. So it's like somebody comes in from outside and they're like, suggesting something. You're like, bro, like you don't know, like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. It's kind of a thing. Like somebody who doesn't basically do what you do, like a corporate character or whatever, right? But if he's coming in and he's showing you a bunch of stuff and like, hey, this is what happened over here, and like basically like giving you numbers or backing up what he's saying, so he can sell you on what he's saying, it's a whole different vibe to it. So that prep, I feel like the prep part of him talking about even watching old practices and stuff like that, I almost feel like when he's a 1v1 with players, he was able to impress the players to the point where, like I say, they bought into like what he wants to do. And I think that's kind of like huge. Trevor says my biggest amazement with City is how much they've collected muted Foden. And funny, like, let me pull this up over here. And I know, let's see if this is gonna work a bit better here. Yes, but the Foden was actually like the lowest rated, and I've always bitched about sofa score rating, so maybe not put too much into that. But the reason I put this up is when you look at the lineups, like when the 11, before the game starts. When you look at this 11, it's not like, oh man, this City team is like brutal. It's still a quality squad out there, but they just don't have one. I mean, it kind of like shows how much difference it makes when a team believes in itself, number one, and how much that spine matters. Because you look in the middle, you're like, your spine is Gundogan and Silva in the middle. Maybe 5 years ago, this would be slightly better because Gundogan would be Gundogan. But it just shows that when the spine is not straight, everybody's all over the place. And that back line had zero protection yesterday. And I don't care how great your back line is, because it's very similar to the back line that won them titles. When you don't have somebody helping them, they're going to get exposed, especially when they're playing against, Diaz, Gakpo, and Mo.
It's almost as if they still play thinking that Rodri is there and that he's going to clean up every single thing in that midfield. And when the ball goes through, they look around and go, oh shit, wait, Rodri isn't here. There is no one here. This was our spine, right? This was our guy. And because you watch that game, every time it felt like there was no one in that midfield for them. Like ball after ball after ball. And I really liked, I think Slot had McAllister, every time Rico Lewis touched the ball, McAllister, or between Lewis and Foden, McAllister was on their back as soon as they touched the ball every time, giving them a little shove, like, hey, I'm here. Like you get the ball, I'm here. And I think it was a nice way to set up, knowing that, giving them that little push and telling them, you're not going to be able to turn with the ball because McAllister's right there. And so that neutralizes that a little bit too, so which was really nice. But yeah, it's one thing to lose someone like Rodri, who obviously is incredibly important. I'm not going to diminish what he gives to that side, because we've been in a similar situation where we've had a player that gives us a lot be out, when Van Dijk was out for a long time, and then we were stuck with Fabinho and Hendo at the back. But it's another thing to have that one player absolutely derail the rest of the team too. I mean, it's down to Pep to work around that. I understand the transfer window's closed and you might not be able to get someone in to take care of that right now, but it is your job to minimize that impact as much as possible. And right now we're just not seeing him do that. We're seeing him still try and set up the same way without the same player. And I don't know if that's necessarily, when Pep has his players and has his way, he's great, but this is just a testament to how can he respond and change this team in a way with the players that he has to set up efficiently and not have to be so open in the midfield, because that's the problem right now, is that they're so wide open because they're missing Rodri. Like, you can't say one single player is going to be the reason your entire season is derailed. And if it is, there's a shit strategy to begin with.
Of course, we say that, but then, if something happens to Van Dijk, I mean, you look at that game yesterday, there's a couple of times where they played the over-the-top ball to Holland, and one of them, Gomez is kind of cooked. Like,
Sure.
by the time Gomez realizes, but then Van Dijk is there. I mean, every time they try to do something over the top, Van Dijk was there. So I think, when we talk about 9 points, 11 points, what can go wrong? That's probably like the worst thing that can happen is like if we have one player that we would lose and it would hurt us as much. They were talking about this in that Northside show yesterday too. It is probably Van Dijk and Mo. You can put him like kind of 1A, 1B. Probably Van Dijk more though. I think you can do things to replace what, for Mo. You can find like different alternatives. It's kind of like hard to find an alternative to what Van Dijk brings right now. But I mean, you look at this, like missing players, this is it. Like we had, and that's another thing is probably like the biggest, mind you, I thought Chiesa was back in action, but that's a different story. I think you look at, is it because we are winning that nobody talks about our injuries? And it's like this illusion created that we don't have injuries. Whereas, I mean, we literally had more players out than they did. And that's probably a concern right now because he kept talking about, Slot was talking about how we only have 5 players to select from for the back line. And that's for, it sounds like a couple of weeks, which is kind of scary.
Winning will always taper over any cracks that you have. And we've talked about that, right? We talk about the title winning season where anytime you're in a form of around a team that is so good, it makes everything else look good. Right. And once you start losing, that's when you start really assessing and seeing what's gone wrong. I think, especially when it comes to maybe rival fans looking at a team that has won so much and they're thinking, well, then the injuries don't matter because clearly whoever's playing is the best that's supposed to play in that position, whatever the case might be. But it's not necessarily true because you look at Konate being out, he is the first or second choice, the first choice right center back, right? Bradley, you could argue for a stretch was the first choice right back, especially with Trent being injured, which he was. And then you have Jota, who would be the 9, who would be the starting 9 if he was in. Which, by the way, I know Diaz's finishing isn't as good, but that Gakpo Diaz Mo front 3 is kind of exciting. I will say it's a much different kind of front 3 than I think what Slot would want to do because Diaz isn't so much the hold up kind of player that Jota is, but it gives you a different dimension. I think it's pretty fun to see those 3 together because like how do you solve playing Gakpo or Diaz?
Yeah,
play them both. I mean that was the strategy, right? So, but yeah, injuries wise, it's just as long as you keep winning, everything else will be just fine. It's kind of how the mentality goes, and then once. We'll see what happens if things sputter, if you will.
Yeah, I just like it's. I can see rival fans not even noticing we have people out because, I mean, I think like I say, like listening to fans from like Arsenal, United, and stuff like that talk about it. I think they do see and kind of admire the fact that you plug in anybody, and so far they've done the job regardless. I mean, Kelleher being like the biggest example. But like you mentioned, Bradley coming in doing the job, Kwanzaa coming in doing the job, Costas at times on the left-hand side. I mean, you can argue, was he coming to do a job or Robertson wasn't doing a good job, and that's why he was getting chances. And this gives Robertson a lot of playing time. Let's hope we don't like run the legs out though over because he was really. I mean, everybody was really good yesterday. Really, you couldn't find any cracks. That's an interesting one that you bring out, and I'm sure like we'll dissect the hell out of it tonight, but. The Diaz in the middle thing and that Nunez coming off the bench was, dude, that's what's so amazing to me. Like you look at everything that, like the subs, I felt like could have come in a bit earlier. It felt like, the midfield was getting tired, but overall, like it's almost like everything he does seems to be working. That's just like, I don't know if it's crazy luck. Can he be this good? I just don't know. Like, because, he's like, you know what? Now I put Nunez in. And then you see him like in the goal involvements and stuff like that. I thought it was a good decision to start because as much as I love Nunez, I still don't trust his pressing as much as I trust Diaz. And, I keep saying this pressing is not sprinting. He's going to run his ass off. I realize that. but smart pressing, closing down angles and stuff like that. I think he has a lot more faith in Diaz doing that,
Mm.
and his activity. It really gives. When we were talking in the pre-match, I said Gakpo was the key guy for me because I thought he gave Walker something different to worry about as opposed to dealing with Diaz. He's dealt with Diaz and he knows what Diaz is going to do or wants to do and stuff. Gakpo is kind of like can do a bunch of different things. He might not do anything and, like have somebody else run overlap him and stuff like that. So, especially Walker, as he's never been a great defender and the speed is getting less and less to expose him more. I thought that was like that was genius. For example, having Gakpo and then Diaz. I did not even look initially when I saw Gakpo. I was like, oh, Gakpo is on the left, and I was like, oh shit, Diaz is over there too. And you knew. I mean, that's one switch, for example, he's done from Gakpo to Diaz. You think that's coming from the players? You think that's yeah, we're getting less out of everybody by doing this? I mean, for Diaz, it's a bigger sell because Gakpo always has said he wants to be the left wing.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the best way to get the most minutes for both of them. I don't know. And, I think Slot doesn't have the true 9 maybe that he wants in this kind of a system. So if he does get that guy who is consistently available, then things might change. But I think this is, I'm having nightmares. I think I'm hearing things. He's getting closer and closer. It's just fun. And I think the fact that he's able to experiment a little bit throughout the season while also still getting the results that he wants is a great sign too, and an even bigger testament to what he sees and what he wants out of the team. And so, yeah, it's exciting. And I know, I think Discord this morning, the whole Paisley Slot comparisons, obviously we're 13 games in. We're not going to go crazy. We may be deluded, but we're not clinically insane. I mean, some of us,
not
maybe,
all of
but, but it's hard not to see the parallels if things continue going this way.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. Is it just dumb luck too? He puts Diaz in the middle against Leverkusen, he gets the hat trick. So it's very easy to say, "See, it works," and then Diaz is like, "Yeah, shit, this does work." And then it's a lot easier to convince him to be like, "You're playing up the middle." Remember the Leverkusen game? I mean, I don't know. It's like a touch of genius luck. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a combination of everything, but it just feels like everything is working as it should, and it's just feels a little surreal.
Too good to be true. Too good to be true. That's all. Yeah. That's all it's been feeling all year. It just feels too good to be true. They're just waiting for someone to pull the rug underneath and just get smacked by reality somehow. But if this is our reality, buckle up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Because we thought this was the growing pains. This is gonna get better as we go, and I think it will. I mean, the bad thing is now. I mean, I remember Klopp always complaining about every 3 games, you're not really practicing. You're doing recovery prep game, recovery prep game. But at the same time, you would think maybe it has helped that you've had injuries and you've had to rotate and stuff like that. So everybody in the squad has played, and you just got Elliott back. So you'll probably see him getting more and more minutes. It was great to see him out there yesterday. So you'll probably start getting 10, 15, 20 minutes here and there and stuff like that slowly. So that's a guy totally forgotten where, a lot of hope was in him initially. I'm interested to see if he's going to fit this new system, or I always felt Elliott was really good when he came on because he knew what the system wanted from him, and he was very familiar with Klopp and understood what the system wanted. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can do the same over here and be like, I know what I got to do, because I really don't know where he fits, because I don't think he can physically do what Szoboszlai does, who was amazing yesterday and finally was able to do his defensive work and a lot going forward as well with simple passes. So yeah, a lot to be excited about. So that was a great overall Thanksgiving weekend, which I should ask you, what did you do for a Polish Thanksgiving? Is there such thing as a Mitsush, a Wilomek Thanksgiving tradition?
No, you'd be quite surprised to know that a lot of it is American based. We don't do. I'm trying to think of what we might have done that was.
Are
more
there
Polish.
pierogies involved? I know it's very stereotyping, but
No,
no, really.
no. There
I thought
was.
you'd be like, can we at least have a side of pierogies?
Make me think of home. Let me think. There was a big old turkey made. My stepdad smoked some brisket, so that's not Polish at all, right? I mean, that's
Not American either. I mean, it's American, but not
It's
for Thanksgiving.
not for Thanksgiving. No, I think people are slowly moving away from the dry ass bird that's known as a turkey and just doing different things. Let's see. There was a cranberry sauce that was made, sweet potatoes, regular mashed potatoes. Thinking
It's
what
very
else?
American.
Green beans.
Nothing that nasty thing you showed us with the Jello shit on top.
No, that's Christmas.
Oh, okay. Can't wait.
Yeah, no,
Mark your calendars.
How dare we waste such good jelly meat on a holiday like Thanksgiving? We're gonna use it on a real holiday like Christmas. God damn
We'll
it!
have to bring that up again. Show the audience who was not with us last year to see what
I'll bring it up around the time. Maybe I'll just eat it on air. I'll just hold it right here. I'll just take.
I don't know if I can stick around for that show. Might have to turn your camera off here and there, because that just did not look right. I have to say, and I'm all for tried venison yesterday. I tried it I think once before, but
was it
boyfriend? They went hunting and
Yeah.
they got the buck, so she brought back. I haven't tried the steaks yet, so we do have some venison steaks. So if anybody has venison cooking tips, especially for a steak, let me know. The other one was she says great way to lose subscribers. Yeah, we're trying to get to 1,000, not to 500.
We'll gain the right ones, you guys. We'll gain the right ones.
But yeah, did a venison burger yesterday, which it was mixed with like a little bit of pork, I guess, apparently, but delicious. It was like a really good burger. But I don't know, the steaks are going to be more of a different
From what I hear, those things are tough to cook, man. So good luck.
And the bad thing is, we usually like the shit well done.
You eat your steaks well done?
Yes. I know it's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, if I want. Okay, so.
And I'm going to lose subscribers. And I'm going to lose subscribers.
Is people who don't know how to fucking cook steak or never had good steak, because it's not hand in hand. A well done steak doesn't mean a dry steak if you do it right. So let's get this straight, first of all. Let's get rid of this freaking anti-well-done agenda that you and your buddies have. And the fact that people have, like, eat the shits, like, medium rare and stuff like that. I mean, just go bite a cow in the ass if you really want a lot of blood gushing out. And, I'll cook my shits. Because it seemed to work a lot better for humankind. I'll cook my shits. You go bite the fucking cow with the blood. So how do you get yours?
Medium rare to medium.
Medium rare. Okay, don't be like changing it midway now because I poo-pooed medium rare.
No. Well, honestly speaking, I really couldn't give a shit because my tongue, like, I don't have a great palate. I think everything tastes good, honestly. There are.
Well, we know since you eat that.
There are a few things. I'm one of the least pickiest person when it comes to food, and so I'll just enjoy it. I don't criticize or I just don't have the palate for it really. Because Michelle likes her meat cooked pretty much well done. So like we do that. I don't mind. I was more so doing it for the bit. And you wanted 15-second clips. I gave you a 15-second clip, damn it. But no, you definitely will have some people come for you, especially Brian. Maybe let me shoot over a Discord food message really quick and see.
Yeah, it does get a lot of, like, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like people think it's more manly to eat it bloody or something like that, which
people also have to buy soap that's labeled for men because they're scared of buying soap that isn't labeled for men, so I wouldn't even worry about it.
I basically put that in there. Tenderized venison and lemon, vinegar, or buttermilk. Those are like three very different things, man. Like from acidity to the buttermilk concepts. Buttermilk, I know for like poultry and stuff like that, but I feel like, something has to be done with it, right? Because it's a venison steak. When I went online for the hamburger, there were 0 tips. They were teaching me how to make a hamburger. And I was like, I know that. I just don't know what to do with the venison kind of thing. But then it was like, oh, you can do whatever. And it turned out whatever. But like, I don't think we did anything special to it. But yes, going to have to try the steaks. Angie didn't want to do the whole venison thing. because deer, bucks, Bambi thing going there. I was like,
That's
we eat lamb. I mean, fluffy little
yeah.
delicious characters.
Lamb is cuter than a deer. Well, maybe not a fawn, but a deer, yeah, once they're adults, because they don't know what they're doing. They just run into
Yeah, they're
traffic.
all over the highway. They don't know
Yeah.
how to cross the street, look both ways. Stupid animals. They deserve to be eaten. Hammer the meat. That does not. Okay, that's out of context. That's not. And you doing that really doesn't help. Oh,
I'm just showing you what to do.
hammer the meat. Really? Like chicken almost?
Well, then you're almost making a venison cutlet at that point.
Yeah, no, this is like a steak. I'm like unwrapped it. It's still frozen, but it's like actual like venison steak. So I don't know. We'll find out. I'll let you guys know. The problem is like I don't know how like it's. I mean, Angel did eat the burger afterwards. I was like, dude, it's just meat.
If you close your eyes, it sounds like club. If you close your eyes, it's just a cow.
If you close your eyes, it just sounds like lamb. Yeah, I mean, it was delicious. Strongly recommended. Monday, day off, or you guys probably had a crazy weekend, I assume. A lot of brewery being sold for.
Yeah, it's the madness, the craziness has started. But today, day off. Yesterday, Michelle and I went to go see 9 houses. So it's been busy. So today
9
is just
houses, really.
Yeah, and 7 of them not even considerable. Like that's kind of the state of our area right now where we're at. Where only 2 of them we wanted to consider, and one of them realistically consider. So
consider in terms of like pricing, location, state,
everything. I mean, there were 2 that we liked. One, it was a little bit above our budget, but we're hoping that maybe there's something that we can do there to make that happen. It would be perfect. It would
send your guards over.
Yes, don't make me send my men. We would need a little bit of a remodel, which we did in this house too, so not a big deal. But the other one was a really nice house. On the inside, everything was really good, but the problem was that the backyard. It's on a busy street, and then right next the neighboring thing to us is a big old water tower. So it just wasn't the most pleasant location, and I don't know if. Because Michelle likes to sit outside, or we like to sit outside, and if it's a street that just constantly has traffic going both ways, it might not be as enjoyable.
There's no fence to block that sound.
No, part of the reason you move out to the far burbs is to get away from the constant traffic and noise, right? And so if you're going to be living in that, you don't want to have that all day. So the other one that we really loved is pretty much on like a mini lake is the backyard. There's only one neighbor. And it is a beautiful looking house. It's just a little bit.
Fair warning. Catch with living by a lake. I know if it's a subdivision is you can't have fences in the back.
Correct.
And once you have little Matushas running around, that's a big ordeal. Not having
that's if
let them loose. I mean, you have servants to watch the kids, so you
and,
have to worry
and leashes. You put a leash on a kid, he runs around wherever he wants. It's fine.
That is my biggest pet peeve. People taking their kids around places on a leash is one of my biggest pet peeves. If you want a dog, get a fucking dog. Only Matush could buy 9 houses. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's just investing in property. Not for him.
I'm buying out this entire town, damn it.
It's amazing, by the way, like when you go to houses and you're like, dude, you're trying to sell this, right? Because you're not going to sell it like this.
Yeah, we went into one and we're like, wait, this is for sale. Like, I just want to make sure this is for sale because this does not.
People are gonna come in and look, right? So like it's just like it was. And I remember like going to a house when we considered moving to Indiana. I think it was in Dyer or somewhere like that. And
sounds dire.
The back they were like, oh, the back faces like the fields, and like basically like there was like 4 or 5. Like baseball, softball fields. Yeah, like went out to the backyard and like I was in the fucking outfield basically. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pass because like you think a water tower is bad. They have like the huge lights like when you came out on the field. I'm like, yeah, I think we're gonna pass. Yeah, that's it's fun and it's not fun at the same time to be shopping for homes because like I said, like you go to a lot that are literally a waste of your time.
Yeah.
I think is like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I thought like in this day and age, you'll be able to do a lot more virtual tours and shit like that to avoid all the hassle.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first day that we truly went out to go look, and I think it was nice for Michelle specifically because I've done it before, the house buying process, but it's nice.
Oh, okay.
It's nice for her to get out and actually see some of these in person. Because sometimes, you can do the virtual tours, but I'm sure or maybe Angie knows that you need to get that feeling when you walk in through the door. Sometimes where you're like, you know what, I do see myself enjoying this place. Like I open the door and think, yeah, I could live here. You might not get that feeling through pictures, right? It's very much and maybe not everyone looks for that feeling, but that is something that for some, I know for Michelle specifically, she wants to get that feeling. She wants to open the door, stand and look and go, yeah, I can really see us living here. So
yeah, I mean, I figured like it would eliminate
the bad ones.
Yeah, like when you go to 9, maybe you can at least you're like, we're not even going to that one kind of a thing and eliminate that. You guys have fun doing that. So are you doing more of that today?
No, today I'm doing some more packing up and slowly moving boxes from here to the storage space or to my parents' house because I only have we've got 2 Mondays left in this house forever. So
the house has been officially sold.
Yeah, closing is the 18th.
Oh,
so we're out of here by then. So it's bittersweet for sure. So just
moving
doing a little
from castle to castle is always hard. Hard. Yes.
If only.
Well, you have fun doing that. I'll have fun. I think Fenerbahce plays in a little bit over here. It's like this afternoon, so watching that, and then obviously I'll be back tonight for the Monday night podcast. And Galatasaray lost points yesterday, so today's game is definitely not going to be good because usually that's the way it works. We'll lose points.
Is it Gaziantep?
Gaziantep, yes.
Gaziantep.
Is it home or away?
Home.
It's home, right?
Home.
Yeah, I mean, hoping for a.
Do you want me to give you the 11 on air so you can react?
It's not. What time is the game? It's not out yet.
Yeah, there was just a lineup.
No, that's probably like presumed lineup.
It's okay.
Oh, maybe not. It's fucking 11. Oh my god, I didn't realize the game was 11.
Live reaction. Live reaction
reaction is right. Right. What is the lineup?
All right, so Livakovic in goal, and then you have Osai Samuel, Rodrigo Bacau, Samet Akaydin, and Filip Kostic. You have Yukshek and Fred in midfield, then Tadic, Irfan Can, Ogush Aydin, and then Nesiri.
Ooh. Oh, actually, okay. Oz is on left. Tadic is playing. Ooh, that's interesting. Actually, Tadic is playing as almost like a off the striker in the middle kind of a thing. Yeah, the center back pairing is a little scary over here. But aside from that, I'll take it. I don't know where the hell Amrabat is. He was really needed on this one. Fred went from being to the Manchester United Fred suddenly. Like Mourinho came and he became the Fred that played for Mourinho in United. So I blame Mourinho for this. He's just been like not the old Freds we were like when we first got him. It was like, see, this is how Freds can play. Now it's like, holy shit, see, this is how Fred played. And with like Mourinho kind of a thing. But that will be interesting. Well, I guess I'm watching that in a little bit over here. But then tonight, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, I'll be with the boys. We'll probably dissect it a lot more for the game and look ahead to the Newcastle game and do some predictions on that. Obviously, we only have like one show before that game happens on Wednesday. These games are coming. But hey, enjoying the run. You enjoy packing and moving the castle and ordering the servants around. I'll be back tonight. Great week, everybody. Enjoy the ride. More to come, hopefully. Take care.